inside our cells we find second set of genome. This genome is entirely different from that of the genome found within the nucleus, which is present in 23 chromosomes. So where do we find this extra genome or extra set of genes? Yes, it is found inside an organelle. So that organelle is mitochondria. Mitochondria has its own DNA. Typically, whenever we tell about DNA or chromosomes, we say that it's present only inside nucleus, right? So like anything else in biology, here also we have exception. And the exception to this rule that DNA is found only inside the nucleus is mitochondria. Mitochondria has its own DNA. So from where does this mitochondria gets its DNA? To understand this, let's see what is endosymbiosis. As the name suggests, endo is inside, symbiosis is any mutualistic relationship between two different organisms, right? But now what does this endosymbiosis got to do something with mitochondria? To understand this, let's look into evolution. We know that there are two types of cells, prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells. Prokaryotic cells are the primitive type of cells like that are found in bacteria, where there's no well-defined nucleus nor membrane-bound organelles. Eukaryotic cell is well-developed cell which has its own nucleus, and inside the nucleus the DNA is present. Evolution says that eukaryotic cells have evolved from prokaryotic cells. Now, how are these eukaryotic cells evolved? It is explained by endosymbiosis. So, 1.5 billion years ago, we just had prokaryotic cells. So different varieties of prokaryotic cells. The earth had only prokaryotic cells. Now just imagine a larger prokaryotic cell which didn't have any distinct functions or definite characters, and a smaller prokaryotic cell. The characteristic feature of the smaller prokaryotic cell was that it was capable of doing aerobic respiration, just like that of mitochondria. Okay, so the smaller cell was capable of producing ATP in the presence of oxygen. So just imagine a scenario where the larger prokaryotic cells goes and engulfs, or it eats the smaller cell, smaller prokaryotic cell that is capable of carrying out aerobic respiration. Normally, what happens after one cell consumes the other cell will be destroyed. But that's not the case here. Here, the smaller cell, which was capable of doing this aerobic respiration, survived inside the bigger cell. So it was not digested by the bigger cell, rather it started living inside the cell. So this starts the concept of endosymbiosis. So there is a smaller cell which is capable of carrying out aerobic respiration, and that is residing within a larger prokaryotic cell. Right? So this is the endosymbiosis, and this theory is endosymbiotic theory. Now, this complex prokaryotic cell gradually evolved into a eukaryotic cell, and this smaller prokaryotic cell which was residing within the cell got converted, or it evolved into mitochondria, the present day mitochondria. So that's how the mitochondria got inside a eukaryotic cell, and that's why mitochondria has its own DNA, because it was a cell, it was a free living prokaryotic organism, right? We say that mitochondria is inherited by endosymbiotic theory, but is it just a theory, or do we have any proof for that? Yes, we do have proofs. The proofs are not experimental as such. These are a few of the characteristics shown by mitochondria. So let's see why do they resemble prokaryotic cells? The first and the important thing, the way in which the mitochondria divides. As we know, the bacterial cells divide by binary fission, right? One cell will divide and give rise to two cells. Similarly, the mitochondria divides in the same fashion. So unlike normal eukaryotic cells which undergo mitosis, the mitochondria will just divide, or it will just duplicate like binary fission. So that's the first character which is similar to that of a prokaryotic cell. And the second character is the ribosomes. We know that there are two types of ribosomes. The prokaryotic cells have 70S type of ribosome, and eukaryotic cells have 80S type of ribosome. Mitochondria is an organelle found within the eukaryotic cell. So by logic, it should have 80S type of ribosome. But here we see that the mitochondrial ribosomes are smaller in size. These are 70S, which is one more proof for the fact that these show prokaryotic ancestry. And the final and the most striking character of mitochondria is its DNA. The eukaryotic nuclear DNA is double-stranded and linear, whereas the prokaryotic DNA is double-stranded and circular. Similarly, the mitochondrial DNA is circular. Unlike nuclear DNA, it's circular, and the way mitochondrial DNA replicates, that is also different from that of nuclear DNA. So these are the characters which tells us that, which gives us solid proof for the endosymbiotic theory. Mitochondria is not the only organelle that shows endosymbiosis, or we have one more organelle. It is not found in animals and humans, but it is found in plants. The organelle that makes plants autotrophic, yes, it is the chloroplast. So here, the larger prokaryotic cell engulfed a smaller prokaryotic cell that was capable of carrying out photosynthesis. And then it became an integral part of that cell, which later on evolved into plant cells. We got to know that mitochondria has its own DNA. Does that mean that all the activities of mitochondria is regulated by its DNA, just like that of nucleus? So nucleus has control over all the activities of the cell. So similarly, does mitochondrial DNA has some special functions, or does it have some special characters? So let's have a look into it. In spite of having its own DNA, the mitochondria is not completely autonomous. The mitochondrial genes won't regulate the functions of mitochondria completely. So the nuclear DNA will be overlooking the function of mitochondria. So majority of the proteins that are required for mitochondrial functioning comes from nuclear DNA. So then what are the other specialities here? So mitochondrial DNA shows, or mitochondria as such, this organelle as such, shows something called as maternal inheritance. Now what is this maternal inheritance? Something that we inherit from our maternal side. How does this happen? So let's imagine the process of fertilization. So what happens during fertilization? So we know that the sperm nuclei fuses with the egg nuclei, right? So during the process of fertilization, sperm will just send its nucleus inside the ovum. Okay, so that sperm nucleus will go and fuse with the nucleus of egg, and then that entire egg will develop into zygote. Now think, from where do we get the cytoplasm? Zygote is a cell. It has nucleus, which is a fusion product of male nuclei and female nuclei, and it has cytoplasm. So from where does the cytoplasm come? It comes from ovum. The egg contributes the cytoplasm as well as all the cell organelles. And when I say cell organelles, mitochondria is also involved in that. So whatever the mitochondria that we find in zygote comes from the ovum, which in turn means that it comes from the maternal side. So the zygote will further divide and develop into embryo. So in embryonic cells, wherever we see cell organelles, especially the mitochondria, it will be having a maternal origin. So that's why we say that mitochondria shows maternal inheritance. What is the importance of maternal inheritance? This maternal inheritance helps us to trace our ancestry, because unlike the nuclear DNA, which undergoes recombinations, variations, so it is comparatively less in mitochondrial DNA. So we can, by sequencing the mitochondrial DNA, we can trace back our ancestry. So that's the whole point of maternal inheritance and mitochondria, which shows this maternal inheritance. The mitochondrial DNA is not as big as the nuclear DNA. The nuclear DNA will have 50,000 to 60,000 genes, but the mitochondrial DNA, the human mitochondrial DNA, just has 37 genes. And these 37 genes, many of these genes are lost during the course of evolution. Okay, and these 37 are the conserved genes. That's all about maternal inheritance and endosymbiotic theory. If you like this video, please share and subscribe to our channel. Thank you.